Good morning. What's this, like 3 days in a row? 3 days in a row. 3 days in a row. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is the morning Solonomics. 3 days in a row. I think it's 3 days in a row. We gotta take it how it come, y'all. Take it how it come. Fell in the sharing mood. But all praise be to the Creator for another day of life. I pray everybody is doing well. You see the title. It's unusual for here at Solonomics, but again, it's a teaching moment. It's a teaching opportunity. I commented and did some research early on this year. This year has been a weird year. It started off weird. And when I look back and listen to some things and look back at what some places like Ghana that deemed it the year of return, and some people who have the 1619 thought this 400 year, the year just started off for many reasons, and it could be coincident, it could be happenstance, and it could be what needed to be. You know what I mean? But it started as weird, and it seems to be ending weird, and prayerfully the Most High bless and increase good works next year. But among other things, it was a year of, as Solomon said, there's a time to build and then there's a time to, tear down. And this has been a year where many things have happened, and many things that weren't supposed to be together broke apart, or things that weren't firmly together came apart. And so what was brought to my attention this year was the ADOS conversation. And I found it intriguing, as I've shared before. And I did some research on it, and I began to speak to it. And then when I felt the energy coming from the ADOS discussion, I'm like, this is weird. You know what I mean? This is an interesting energy coming off of this discussion. And so I started to do, what I do, fact checking, fact finding, and sharing, and got a few attacks that people were saying was happening. And people are like, no, it's not happening yet. What's happening was people who are not willing to listen, people who are, not all, but some, who were triggered by any alternate views that deviates from the narrative that they're trying to push forward, any rechecking of the data that is being propagated in internet land. And so after a while, I'm like, I said what I had to say, so I fell back. I did a number of videos, but my videos is always coming with some facts. Like, so, what was I gonna say? So then today, this morning, Twitter is not my thing, I'll be honest, because it was just, and it's never caught on for me. So basically, I have like something that it's on there, but I'm not like a person who's like on Twitter, Everybody has their own thing. So, but I do updates that come, and after a while I check some of these updates. So I'm checking these updates, and I come to see this back and forth between what is termed ADOS and what is now termed Foundational Black Americans, FBA. And I'm like, at one point the discussion was like, hey, let's do this together. I'm not following every single, tit for tat that they have. But the discussion is like, hey, we're supporting what you're doing, reparations, bag, 2020, all of this. This is the last I knew of it. So to find what I found this morning transpiring, I'm like, what in the world is happening here? What's going on? You know what I mean? And what I find going on is this back and forth publicly, this public cuss as they would say, back and forth between Tariq Nasheed, Tone Talks, and Yvette Carnell, where the end result is out in which ADOS founders block him, and then he takes the screenshot and he puts it on his page. That basically they tapped out. So these are some of the stuff that I would say concerning how we go about doing the things we do. There are many observable errors that are happening in this discussion. One is the lack of respect for those who come before us. the biblical principle is honoring your mother and your father. Beyond honoring your mother and your father, you have to have some level of respect for the elders, because they came before you, number one. And whether they did everything right, it's the same thing we had with the Mammy conversation. Whether they did everything right or they did everything wrong, we can learn either way. Either way. If somebody, good morning. Yep, long time no see. Yeah, long time no see. What's going on? Things went left quickly. It did. And it's because of the very things that I'm talking about, and people like Dr. Joy DeGruy and others have been talking about, that if you don't deal with this element, you can talk about the money, which has to do with the resources and the labor. You can talk about the rights that you think others should give you. But if you don't talk about mending, if you don't talk about fixing the hole that's in the bucket, everything you attempt to put in there is going to seep out. And this is the part that people keep missing. Like, the reparations part is to say, the person who I feel has harmed me, has wronged me, I need you to make good. Whether they make good or not, you have to make good with the part that you're carrying. And that's not what's happening. All of the attention is being diverted in the things that titillate the senses. Good morning. All the things that are being diverted, the attention is being diverted to material possessions, which have their role. But if you do not address the underlying issue, you will be back to square one quickly. Some of the things that I saw early on, when I was introduced to this discussion, is like I said, there's a lack on one side. There's a lack of respect for those who came before you, whether or not you agree with them or not. There's a way to disagree with those. There's a way to disagree with those who are elders. So one of the contentions that I saw is the conversation of how ADOS founders are referencing Dr. Claude Anderson, and this thought that you and the elder who's twice your age are on the same level. Never can be. Even if you disagree with the elder, there's a way in which you disagree with the elders. There's spiritual principles that are in play that, if you're not aware of them, then you cause your own demise. That's number one. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to agree with everything they did, but you cannot negate that they have done what they have done. That's number one. And that's the windshield wipers, y'all. It's like slightly drizzling. Number two error that I've seen is the way in which they have set their platforms. Platform on both sides is set on coming for people. So, like they say, if that's the way you live, then that's the way you're going to go down. I don't like to say, live by the sword. You understand what I'm saying? If that's the way you live, coming for people, coming at people, making cracks on people, you're disrespecting people, then understand that energy is going to come back. So there, I see that somebody doesn't have an understanding of spiritual laws. Because it's not a surprise that if you spend all day in this, you owe me something vibration, and that everybody who I see has something that I want, then I have the right to come get them. I have the right to come for them. I have the right to talk about how they look and how they walk. And when you do that on a daily basis, you're putting all that energy into your bank. Boom, 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 boom. You're making deposits. And every bully, there's a bigger and better bully. You understand what I'm saying? For every bully, there's a bigger and better bully. So that's number two. And that happens on both sides of what I have observed. Now, people have, when we go back to Edwin Nichols, Dr. Edwin Nichols, who's talked about this ideology of what is the greater, what do we value? Now they're saying they can't work together because there has been a compromised respect for one another. And so there's no respect there, so then I cannot no longer work with you. Who cares about the people are like, yo, what about the end goal? What about what we're trying to accomplish? They're like, man, forget that. Because why? There's perceived or actual disrespect that has happened. So it violated the ability to collaborate. And they came together on the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So the fact that you had to make other melanated your enemy, right? Without the full story on that conversation, I've been saying that, like, yo, that's not the full story. But you had to make the enemy of your enemy your friend, and ultimately the enemy of your enemy became your same enemy. And so it confuses everything. Now it's all confused. Now the movement is split. You understand? The leaders are doing the Malcolm and Martin. You know what I mean? And now it's being played out in a public arena. And nobody's saying, hey, when the people do say, because people have said, hey man, why don't you just go talk to the elder? Why don't you just go, pull that person aside? I'm gonna do it in public. So it's like, wait a minute, public, you get to that point. If you it gets to that point. But if you haven't tried the other avenues yet, then why are you doing this? Now I saw the Dr. Anderson Breakfast Club video. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, and some people look to be offended. Some people look for places where I'm just going to watch this thing, and if they even make an insinuation, I'm going to be offended. And that's kind of what I saw. I didn't watch the thing because I don't got that much time in the day for the Yvette Carnell, Dr. Claude Anderson. But it's like you weren't called, you weren't referenced by name, but the thought is you were referencing me, because the thought is that they have done more in this area than anybody else. That is a very, high-minded thought. Somebody had to put the foundation down. Somebody had to pour the cement. Somebody had to do the prep work. Somebody had to lay out the blueprint. Somebody had to do something for which you came standing on. Somebody had to do HR 40 for you to come and combat HR 40, to say it's nothing. If it wasn't there, you wouldn't have a talking point. Dr. Claude Anderson was there, you wouldn't have a talking point. You wouldn't have a place to begin. If Cali House didn't have the first reparations movement for actual people who were one slave, you wouldn't have that talking point. If somebody didn't do the reports and the data, you wouldn't have talking points. So to say that I'm doing the most while standing, like they say, on the backs of those who came before you, shows the error in the thinking. That's error. That's error in the mind. You stand, no matter if the foundation is faulty and you got to go back and repair it, or that the foundation is good and you just came and jumped on it and you started building on it, whatever it is, to deny that it's there and that it has value shows where the mindset of the people really are. So you have one side who is saying, hey, you can't disrespect the elders even if you don't fully agree. And disrespect doesn't mean that you cannot fully agree. It's the way in which you choose not to agree. It's the way in which you choose to address them. You have grandparents. I have grandparents. Or you may have great-grandparents. You may not agree with everything they say. Or you have the elder Aunt Betty. It's like I told the example of the gym. I just met the lady. I know the lady got to be like in her 70s, touching 80s. This is an elder. I don't know her. I say good morning every day, but I'm not gonna come at her like wild and crazy. Like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? And she was coming at me with some Christianity mindset, and I'm still gonna be respectful. And you know what I mean? If you were willing to engage, and I'll engage and have that discussion with you. It's a lack of respect for those who came before you also shows where the society is going. This is why, like, America, why are you doing that? What's that? America doesn't fully respect their elders. During slavery, they didn't really fully respect the elders. Once you were no longer useful to the system, there's some places where they would turn out the elders into the street, and they would be the roaming homeless. They would be the ones who's going, because they can no longer fend for themselves, and they go leave them in an old abandoned cabin with no heat so that they can die slow. And today you take them and you put them in a nursing home, or you put them in wherever it is that you put them. He may have came up with, speaking of Dr. Claude Anderson, he may have came up with what he was looking at during his day and said, this is what we need to do. The other side of the argument is that things have changed, but the more they change, the more they stay the same. So even though you may have to tweak some things, for instance, the car, when they started manufacturing the car, you don't say, oh, the whole principle of car doesn't make sense, just throw it all away and start from scratch. You use the principles of the first car, the T model, the Fords and all that, and then you build upon that. But the principle is still here, because there's nothing new under the sun. So those are some of the things in my observation that has hamstrung basically this discussion, is because it was fueled in by not a thought of healing and healing, which is what reparations has to do with. It's repairing and making whole again. it was, to me, just what I've observed, it was a very, is a very, it's feeding off, it's feeding off a resentment. That's what the energy is feeding off of. It's feeding off of a level of entitlement. And some people, you feel free to disagree, just respectfully. But this is the observation. When you, there's something that someone says, and then there's the energy behind what the person says. And if you are willing to attack what people are saying your own, if you're willing to attack who you claim is not your own, and then willing to attack who is your own on both sides, like I've seen this on both sides, like full on attack on those who you are fighting to say is your own in the public sphere without any regard. It's like, what in the world? So that shows me that this is something else is going on here. It's a public display of something else. It's a public display of something else. So yeah, essentially, how can we learn from this, and how can it be a teaching moment? And when, because when you try everything else, you say, okay, I tried religion, and another person says, yeah, I tried talking about economics, and another person say, I tried. You're always going to get back to the fabric or the moral character of the people, because you talk about business. If you don't have trustworthy people, you don't have business. And to get to the fact where many black people say they don't trust other black people, that is truth. That is fact. That is an underlying issue that needs to be addressed, because you cannot build communities, you cannot build structures, you cannot build generational wealth when you don't trust people. Where they do that at? That has to do with morality. You understand what I'm saying? That these things have to be the glue. Oh, I don't trust that person. As soon as that person walks out of the eyesight, I don't trust that person. I don't trust the person to deliver this, that, and the third. I didn't want their goods. That is a mentality that's coming from the place of not even before slavery. Let's just say that. But in this particular, it was exasperated during that time. So you have to address that. You have to address the fact that you don't value yourself. And so in return, many times you don't value those who look like you. That goes back to the trusting. Self-value, self-worth. Dr. Joy DeGrusso calls it I'm vacant. I should turn right here. She calls it vacant esteem. Right? And all of these things have to do with these big, I wouldn't say they're lofty goals, but they are lofty goals if we don't deal with the immediate goals. Alright, you see me say me should have turned right there. So what them block off right there so far? Hey, in little the last they blocked off right there. You see that? Teaching moment. I'm like, yo, I should turn right here. I'm on the straight road and I'll jump off the road. I'm like, yo, I should turn right here. But the road is blocked. It still leads, it's access to where I'm trying to go, but the road is blocked. And that's what melanated people keep getting into. The road is blocked. And then you have to say, why is the road blocked? Because they don't want nobody to take no shortcut through the back right there. I'm going to come and see your comments in a minute. I'm not talking about right now, because I'm going to come and see, because I don't get into the back and forth. I'm going to come and see. I said on both sides of this discussion, the behavior of the people involved over a long period of time shows that they would be inclined to end up in this their particular destination. Rocket scientists to figure out that they would eventually get here. And the thing is, sometimes we wait for this to happen to be like, oh man, well, why didn't it happen? Instead of saying, I saw the signs. If you continue on this road, you will end up where you are. Hold on, we have the red light, y'all. Let's see what's happening. The critique and was disrespectful of Dr. Anderson was disrespectful. Is a lifetime legend. Well, thank you, sis. Thanks for the headline. Dr. Anderson's legacy is being used to shape a false narrative about ADOS. Full disclosure, I am ADOS. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. It seemed like Yvette and Tone went off immediately after the breakfast. Yeah, because yes. Maybe they felt like they should be getting all the. That's exactly what I was going to say. That's why I held my peace, and you came and said it. Something has been talking about for decades. This is what I'm saying. These people, Dr. Winbush as well. All of these people, you may not like their approach, but to say that they did not have one and for their time they didn't do what they were supposed to do is disingenuous. You cannot disrespect those who came before you and use and then claim that this is all my original material. It's like they always say, who is your favorite artist? Or who is a musician? And they give respect to somebody who came before them. Oh, it was Aretha Franklin. Oh, it was Whitney Houston. Oh, it was this person. Somebody always listened to somebody who came before them. You see it in the entertainment industry. You see it in the comedic in the sphere. Oh, who did you listen to coming up? Oh, I listened to such and such. I listened to such and such. Now here we come in the intellectual space, and I'm supposed to believe that you listen to no one, and you are not borrowing anything from anyone or getting any strength from anybody who came before you, and that this is all your original information and idea. Why? What is the need to keep saying something like that? And then we have to say, okay, well, what's going on here? That's going to eventually lead to where you are now. I'm supposed to be getting that shine. I'm supposed to be. And is this about shine? No one person has all the pieces of the puzzle. No one person. And you can see that by looking at the way they act and the way they behave. And you can conclude that, okay, you may have it together here, but in this, and this place, you need some work. Anybody who presents like, oh man, I have it all together and have not endeavored to get it all together, economy is not the only place that has been robbed. That will take the studying of the institution to come to that conclusion, that there's other places that need to be repaired, and people who have been saying it for years, the psychologists, the black psychologists and sociologists and social workers in the community have been saying it for years. But their solution is not the only solution. But tapping into what they've been saying is important. Y'all hold on one second. Talk amongst yourselves, y'all. Talk amongst yourselves. I gotta do something real quick. Hold on. I'll be back. I gotta do something real quick, y'all. Yeah, my bad. Had to go do this thing real quick. Hold on, y'all. I'm confused. What was that? Let me go check and see. Yeah, how you guys doing? Hold on. Had to do some. Got y'all on the road. Like, either I'ma hang up this thing. My jacket was stuck. Yeah, so there is some humankind. I know some of the stuff that I be talking about sometimes go over people's head, or sometimes for some people it's too simplistic. It's not deep enough. You understand what I'm saying? It's not deep enough and it's too simplistic. But the reality is life is supposed to be simple. And some of the answers to our problems is simple, not easy, but simple. And so what we're looking at are people projecting their personalities, their indifferences, their shortcomings, and projecting it out into the space where other people who may be suffering some from those same issues, are. And as a result, we're seeing it play out. Hold on. This. You used to be able to go over right here, and then they just messed around and jammed up the road and did all this other stuff. And so, yes, what can be done then? What can be done? People have to be honest. Here's the thing. There's one side that's saying, hey, we have to be self-sufficient. I see one of the attacks was that, you use other people's monies to start businesses that you seem to be the only one that's profiting from. That was one of the contentions. And his retort was, that's how people do business. They source other people's monies to do business or to do projects or to do events. There is some truth to that in how some people do business. For instance, you will have some startups, some tech startups, and they are out there so that they can get capital to start up their businesses. But that's okay for other people in other spaces. But because we are injured in many of the spaces of which is like finance and economy, then for us it's called begging. You know what I'm saying? For us, it's you trying to rob me. Again, back to that trust factor and trust issue. Look at how many of these tech startups have started up, and look at how many rounds of funding, they call it funding, they have gone for, and look how much they have raised. Now, some people do put in portions of their money. They don't just put like none of their money. They do put portions of their money, but people raise hundreds of millions of dollars every year for tech startups. But when we want to start a business, the thought is, and I'm talking from personal experience, the thought is, I'm talking about proof of concept, I'm talking about sweat equity, I'm talking about somebody who has put the time in, and the thought is, you're begging. The thought is you're supposed to be able to do that all by yourself. These people who you see come out here for these loans and do these massive building projects, dang, mister, and able to make advances in business, they didn't do that all by themselves. So this is, you talk about the disparity in numbers and the data, that's a disparity in your mentality and your mindset to think on one side, we have to beg and scrape and then just make do. This is what you did during enslavement. You begged and you scraped and you made do, and that should be enough, and that there's a pride factor in if you're asking, you're begging. On the other side, they don't have no problem asking, and it's not called begging. Do you understand? So this is one clear-cut space where you can see, okay, this area needs some attention and this area needs some truth. If you think I'm bugging, lately I've been tripping watching the Shark Tank discussion. Listen to how they negotiate. Listen to the questions they ask. The most time they only have one melanated brother, that's the Damon guy from Fubu, on there. And the rest of the Europeans. Listen to how they talk. Listen to the questions they ask. Who funded this startup? How many investors do you have? On the other side of that, if people are making investments, the expectation is that you, as the person who is receiving the investment, are not going to be the only person who is profiting, who is benefiting. Right? And if you come too early in the investment process and they don't see the opportunity for them to make a big return, then they tell you you came too early. But in that initial seed investment, oftentimes it's family, it's friends, it's the community who wants to see you succeed that's going to invest in you. It's like planting a tree. You cannot plant a mango tree today and be like, yo, where my mangoes at? How long does it take a mango tree to bring back forth the fruit? And because we are on a shorter scale, because we a time scan, we need it now. We don't have any time for you to wait for 5 to 10 years for you to bring it back to us. That also comes from how we were living in this place and time. How we were living was from hand to mouth, from day to day. We didn't deal on investments, we dealt on survival. So this is a mindset. I'm just trying to get through the week. I'm just trying to get through the month. I'm just trying to get through the day. So you didn't have the luxury, and your ancestors didn't have the luxury, for the majority of us, to look down the line and say, you know what, I'm investing this today because I want to see this return in 5 or 10 years. So we can't talk about economy and finances and be disconnected or divorced from that thought. So this is why I said, when I commented a couple of months ago on the way in which they said the numbers from what do you call it, Caribbean and African people have per household to what melanated people in America have per household. I'm like, you cannot. You're talking about a different mentality. You're talking about a different experience that's going to bring forth a different mentality. How many melanated people still do, because it was a concept that came from this community banking concept. So I say still do because it's not just something. How many melanated people right now who's on the line know somebody today in 2019 who does community banking, meaning who does susu, not from a traditional banking institution? They call it partner, they call it susu. How many people today know somebody, or maybe that person is you, who has participated in this collective economic thought? People are going into Kwanzaa and they're talking about group economics and all this stuff. How many people know somebody today from who is saying ADOS or who is saying FBA, who today still practices that thought? Anybody? Why do I ask that question? Because when you compare data and you compare numbers, you have to also, to a certain degree, have to compare mentality and mindset and practices. Why do some Caribbean people have access to more capital? Not just the fact that they do, as many people say, but they still practice something. Not all, but a good enough number to make a difference. They still practice community banking outside traditional banking means. Meaning, you have somebody who's trusted in the community. I know people who still do it today, in 20, and have been in America for umpteen years, but still have this principle amongst them that explains why you still have access to capital, explains why you may be able to afford the down payment without getting a traditional loan. Look it up. So these are the things that we cannot leave off the table when we're having this discussion, and only just use the data to start this type of war or argument, where it could be a starting point to just, hey, what are you guys over there doing? You know what I'm saying? How is it that you, like, I would respect more if you'd be like, yo, these people have more, capital, such and such and such. And the question is, well, how are you doing that? Is somebody else giving you that? Like, how are you doing that? How were you able to do that? Because if the question is, I can find value in what it is that you're doing, then I'm not going to hate on you for what you're doing. I'm going to ask you, how is it that you were able to do that? So that I can implement it and maybe make difference in my community. That's a different approach. I'm going to pull over for a second, and then I'm going to go do some errands, y'all. So I'm going to just read these comments real quick, and then... Hold on. I'm going to read these comments real quick, and then I'm going to go do what I got to do. Yvette and Tone are very disrespectful. I would never listen to anything they say, and their organization is political and not for black people. That was the mask. Oh, wow. Tariq told Yvette a new one last night on Twitter. A whole image is shot. And this is the thing. Thousands of them on Kickstarter. Yeah. Indiegogo and they're like, they ain't over there like, oh, you're going to steal my money. You're going to do this, do that. You know what I mean? The thought is, oh, wow, this is a great invention. I want to see this to market. Do you know what it is to be an entrepreneur with the idea? This is why a lot of entrepreneurs and inventors got robbed of their ideas and their intellectual property and their products, because the intellectual prowess, they may have that ability, but access to capital and market became difficult. So the people who had the access to the capital and the market exploited them. I saw in Shark Tank, I was so mad 2 days ago, and I know it's an old episode. I was still mad for this young man. This young melanated brother, who is he looked like a millennial. He's into vinyl. So he started collecting vinyl, and his young friends, because there's nothing new under the sun. So his young friends, one day he said he went to the park and he had picked up some records, and they were like, man, can we hear it? But it's not like iPads, it's not like streaming. And he's like, you know what would be cool? If I created something that was portable, that I could play the records wherever I want. This young dude said he taught himself engineering off of YouTube, created a design for a box, okay, that can spin around the record. Instead of the record spinning, the box spins around the record, and then it has a speaker that plays the music. I was excited, y'all. I was like, yeah, go ahead, do your thing. Do you know he gets an offer? First offer he gets, the man wants him to sell 50% of his company for, I think he was asking for $250,000. Okay? 50% of his company. And the question that the man asked, and it was Kevin O'Leary, and I was like, this is the way in which we as a people over the centuries have gotten robbed. The question Kevin O'Leary asked, he only came there with this one thing, this one product. Kevin O'Leary asked him, do I have access to your future inventions? That's like taking your lifetime work. That's like, and I'm like, what? How did he get to? Because they realize the guy's genius. They realize that there's going to be more to come, and they want to capitalize off of that. Needless to say, he goes with the other guy. What's the guy name? Robert. He goes with Robert's offer. Do you hear Robert's offer? Robert puts in the head of the young man, I'm afraid that you're in love with being an inventor, and you're not really going to be here to be with this product. So I'll take it off your hands for you. I'll give you $500,000 for 100% of the company. He then says, I will hire you. So I just bought you, made you work for me, and then I will hire you for 2 years. What do you think he's going to do within those 2 years? I'm going to pump you for more information. And then he says, I'll give you a royalty off of this. And the dude took the deal. I was yelling and screaming at the screen. You know what I mean? And like, what in the world are you doing? But the dude took the deal. So when we talk about the need to be able to negotiate, the need to understand your value, I don't think that young man went in there really understanding his value. Because if he did, that move that he made, or the need to not negotiate from a deficit and to negotiate from a position of strength. When we don't have those things, anything that somebody offers us is going to sound good. And those things coming from knowing ourselves, that versus, I'll verse that conversation versus another melanated couple. And I'm talking about business, okay? Because that was one of the talking points in this. Somebody may ask, why is she talking about Shark Tank? That was one of the talking points or the contention between ADOS founders and Tariq Nasheed, is the way that he does business versus the way that they do business. So I'm talking about living examples of why business is connected to the sense of self and who we are and access to capital and all of this stuff. Another group, they came in there with a vegan product, a vegan chicken product. They didn't have all their numbers together. I don't know if you saw that episode or you saw the news report, because it was all over the news. You can look up, what's the name of it? Their name just escaped me. Atlantis something. They come in there, they don't have everything together. But what they do have is a sense of self. And what they do know is what they're bringing and what they're offering is value in the marketplace. So even though they tried to get on them for their numbers, they tried to convince them, because that's what they do. Oh, what you have is nothing, this, that, and the third. Why? So that I can buy low and sell high. So they tried to convince them to the same deal. Give me, I'll buy out the product. But this time it wasn't $500,000. This time they offered $1 million. The people didn't have $100,000 in sales. They had like 50-some thousand dollars in sales. They were offered $1 million. And the woman and her husband looked at each other, and they looked at the judge, and they said, we don't want your deal. Because the fact that you're willing to offer me $1 million means that it's worth way more. These are two similar people with two different mindsets. And that's one of the things that is holding us back, is our mindset. And our mindset is based on our thoughts and our beliefs about ourselves. And until that is fixed, you will continue to go around begging people and begging other people to please treat me right, please do me better. But that's not what they respect. History has shown that that's not what they respect. So I'll leave that there. I'll read the last of the comments, and then I'm going to go. You can speak about Tariq, but what he says he's going to do, he does, and does well. And that's another one of the contentions. I do not particularly like the way in which he goes about, but doing what he does and the way in which he talks about people and that aspect. But as Queen T just said, if someone says, I am going to produce this product, and the person produces that product, you cannot say that the person is a scammer. Because the person, if the product does what the person said the product is supposed to do, and that's another thing. We're somebody, oh, the person is scamming, oh, the person is pseudo, oh, the person is this. This is the distrust. Now you and you do have scammers, and you do have people who are pseudo, but you also have people who are authentic, and you also have people who are true, and you also have people who cannot do what they desire to do because they are not able to get access to the capital to do it, and they're not sweet talkers that talk money out of people's pockets. And so they sit with these ideas until they fade away into the distance. So another thing for us to check is who we invest in and why. We tend to be emotional investors. The person strums our heartstrings or gives us a promise that I'm going to give. What were we watching? American Greed. I forgot the name of the man. He's giving these wild, he was melanated too, these wild, crazy promises. I forgot his name. His name escapes me. On return, guaranteed return on your investment. I'm like, how do you guarantee? Investments are calculated risk. How can you guarantee that I'm going to give you, 50% or however much percent you're giving? Long story short, he ran out of capital. They caught up with him. He got jail time. You see what I'm saying? Because he was able to do this and talk people out of their money and then not deliver. Now that is scamming. But if someone says, I'm going to produce a documentary, somebody says, I'm going to produce an event, somebody says, I'm going to produce a product, and they produce said product, said event, said documentary, and they deliver it to you, they did not rob you. They did not scam you. One bank, period.
Mommy.
Yes, dear.
Don't forget his wife. That's what he was using.
Oh, his wife was in there too. I forgot their names though. We'll have
his
to.
His wife's name is Michelle.
Michelle? I can't remember the whole thing. But anywho, with that said, there's so much that we can learn. Please stop. What are you doing? Why did she just do that? Like a face just came. Let me go. Anyway, there's so much that can be learned from this. I don't know greens and yellows, and I'm rocking with this and I'm rocking with that. That doesn't solve the issue. All that does is create an environment for something else. Bet money tomorrow, next week, there's going to be another target. These same people, because they seem to feed off of contention and struggle and back and forth. So these same people are going to have another target next week. You know what I mean? It's going to be another target because that's the drama control. If you guys remember me talking about drama controls, you have the interrogator, you have the aggressive drama control people, and then you have the passive ones. And these two happen to be aggressive ones who go out there and instigate certain things so that they can get a response and then feed off of that response. So that we have to be careful that we fall into that way of exchange, because nothing good ever results in the end. You know what I mean? So with that said, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Let me go ahead and do what I gotta do. Go to the yummy. All right, everybody have a blessed day.